Good morning. Y'all are so quiet this morning. The coffee has not kicked in, huh? It's just starting. Good. I'm Lizzie Shakesnyder. I'm the Professional Development Manager with our Auditor's Office. Great to have you here this morning, and it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our first instructor. She will be teaching throughout the day, so y'all are in for a big treat. We're going to talk about bridging the gap, leading across 5 generations in the workplace. This interactive session will explore the defining characteristics of each generation, the myths and realities that influence workplace interactions, and the challenges that arise when different generational expectations collide. Ms. Christel Slaughter, Dr. Christel Slaughter, is the CEO at SSA Consultants. For more than 30 years, she has led organizational change and planning efforts for hundreds of clients across the United States, with a concentration of this work focused in the public sector. Her expertise is rooted in organizational design and development, specializing in change management, performance improvement, strategic planning, public outreach, and engagement, training design and delivery, leadership development, facilitation services, and executive recruitment and coaching. She has an extensive bio. I invite you to read her bio and get to know her a little bit in the course description. But please welcome Ms. Christel Slaughter.
Thank you, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. It's good to see everybody's bright and smiling faces who are here in the audience today, and we're just imagining the 1,000+ people who are in their bathrobe, in their kitchen, watching this on their laptop and drinking coffee, at work. And so this is one of my very favorite topics, and when I was invited to speak, and I said, well, do you have some topics in mind? Oh yes, we already have that. I thought, oh my gosh, what is it going to be? And when they said that we were going to talk about generational differences and navigating through that in your own workplace and local government, I thought, this is just great. This is just a great topic to start with, because if you have not at some point said, I can't make this up about one of your coworkers or someone you manage, right? Good for you, because it comes out of my mouth all the time, every day. You just can't make this up. You know, I love people. I really do. I like collect people. I start out liking people. But I have to tell you that when I entered the workforce, there was just one generation, one big generation, these traditional, that sometimes they're called the veterans. They really shaped organizations. Now, government is its own set of bureaucracy, not in a bad way. I mean, government is set up to have institutional knowledge. It's set up so that those of us who are in government are, in a sense, widgets. So it doesn't matter if one person leaves, your process shouldn't break down completely. Although in local governments, lots of times you're a one-person pretty much department or process or whatever, and sometimes that happens. But I entered the workforce at LSU many years ago. In fact, one of my coworkers' daughter is here. She's quite mature. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've known your mom a long, long time. And I realized that we were working in a situation where the people who had designed our processes, our workflow, had the vision, were not necessarily on the same page as the new workers who were coming in. And so that was my first experience with generational differences. And our attempts to influence change, because several of us were brought in about the same age, about the same time, were not met with welcoming arms. In fact, there was great resistance from the leadership in the organization that I was part of, as part of LSU, to any change at all. This is working just fine. It's working just fine. Now, I have to tell you, this was so long ago, there were no cell phones. There was no email. So when I'm talking change, I'm talking little teeny tiny changes, all right? Multiply that exponentially to what we have today and the differences in the workers who are coming into the workplace today and those who have been in the workplace for a long time. Some of you are from larger local governments, different forms of organizations, and you may have a department that is large enough to have 5 different generations in it at one time. Anybody like that in here, in the in-person group? Yeah, that's good for you. Wow, you must go home and say that a lot. I can't make this up. So what we're going to do today is look at this not as a stereotype. I think that's the problem we've had with topics like this in the past, is we want to label somebody. We want to say, well, you're a Gen X person. I still have clients who think everybody new is a millennial. I have a kid who's a millennial. He's in his 40s. He ain't a kid anymore, okay? And he's not like we described them when they were in their 20s. You know, they've kind of gone past that stage. But they definitely have their own ways of doing things and preferences and are different from the people before them and after them in certain ways. But we don't want to stereotype. We really want to find out what are the differences and how can you get your peers, your coworkers, those who are above you, those who are below you from different generations, to really work together and actually navigate as a team, because we have different communication styles, we have different communication modes, methods, etc., and we can learn from that. What we want to do is figure out the strengths of your team and how you can make that even better. So, just to remind you, I know most people are more familiar with this today than ever before, but we start out with that older generation, the traditionalists. They are still in the workforce. Some of them are in their 80s, and they are still productive members of the workforce with lots of knowledge. Of every group on this slide, I just read the statistics the other day, and I'm looking around the room to see fellow people. I'm not quite in that group, but I'm real close. That is the fastest growing cohort in the workplace. So people keep telling me about hiring Gen Z. No, you need to be telling me about hiring older workers, more mature workers, well-tenured senior workers, because they're coming back to the workforce in droves. I had a friend the other day, he said, I retired from the state. He said, I cleaned out my garage 3 times, and then I started cleaning out my wife's closets, and she said, you need a job. You need a job. He said, so that's why I'm here. But they brought a lot to organizations, and they still do. They're very loyal. They really do respect hierarchy. They understand chain of command. They understand I need to go talk to somebody. I need to communicate about this. I need to inform people about this. And they have a tremendous institutional memory. So I have to tell you, I've gravitated toward these people when I work with my clients in local government, because a lot of times they can remember the history of something. Now, you don't want to live in that history, but lots of times it helps you understand why a particular department, why a particular other arm of government sort of has this demeanor and behavior. And that institutional knowledge might just put you over the top and be able to solve problems because you understand them a lot better. So don't ever be afraid of these traditionalists. They don't have to dominate their decisions. Their institutional memory doesn't have to be the path that we follow, but they really, really can add value. And they come in with instant credibility, instant skill sets, instant ways of knowing how to do things, because they've had that for years. So watch for that. That's really a very different sort of, we do a lot of searches, executive searches. We actually do searches in local government sometimes. And it surprises people how many times people are attracted back into the workplace because they're missing something. They just want to add value. Now, I'm going to guess that there are some baby boomers in here. That is a declining generation in the workforce. They worked hard, they're kind of ready, they have grandchildren, they're ready to go, they're ready to do other things, but some of them are hanging on. And guess what? Lots of them are way high up in the organization, and they are staying there. And people are like, do you think she'll ever retire? No, she went through drop 10 years ago. She's still here. Very driven, very relationship oriented. So a lot of times they are glue in your organization, and they can be very, very helpful when you are undergoing changes or really have some difficult situations. They value experience, and they really do like recognition. And it's kind of interesting, a lot of times there's tension around someone who's been there for a long time. They've developed, conflict paths or relationships and tensions that we kind of all tiptoe around. But the reality is that if you can figure out what they're really good at, and you can thank them for that, and you can recognize them for that, and you can use them to help share their knowledge with some of your incoming workers, they can be of tremendous value to you. And if they don't see that as something that's threatening to them, they ought to be happy to help. I have to say that I have watched some very interesting things in my time. There is a parish government close to here who had the chief financial officer is what her title should have been. I think she kept some like senior accountant title with her for many, many years past when she was a senior accountant. I want to say she had been there over 40 years. And she had a way of keeping her payroll records, and that as we came in to do a compensation study, we couldn't even figure out what department people were in. In fact, it was called braided revenue streams, and she could tell you this person is 65% this, 10% this, 15% this. I'm like, what department are they in? Like, who do they report to? Oh, I don't know. They had no organization chart. So they had new people on the council, and they were like, can you get us an organization chart? I said, sure, we have to have that for our comp study. We never did. We were never able to help them produce an organization chart because of the way people were accounted for. That's one thing. There were many, many more things like that. And behind her back, everybody pulled us aside and said, she's got to go. She's a dinosaur. I mean, oh my gosh. And all she wants to talk about is the awards they get. You know what? That's because the budget book looks so good. I said, well, that's not exactly right. I mean, let's be fair. But I have to tell you, she talked a lot about the awards, and so that sort of made everything okay to her. Well, sure enough, new parish president, new council comes in, and they identify someone who had recently retired from the state, still very much in the game. Was somebody who went to the state right out of school and just put his time in, was looking for something else to do. They brought him in, and I expected that she would go within 30 days, maybe 60 days. And every time I would show up for this comp study, she was still there. And the new guy who was going to replace her, which was pretty well known, and he actually had a conversation with her about that the first week he was there. He was in this little closet of an office down the hall. And I said, hey, Rob, how long are you going to let this go? And he said, as long as it takes to let her feel respected and to let her let go. I said, that could take years. He said, I'm a young guy. I can handle it. I can wait. He said, we're building a relationship. She's getting more comfortable with it. I don't want to run her off. Quite honestly, this thing is so convoluted and complex. If she walked out tomorrow, I don't know what I would do. So it really was a mutual respect type of thing. When I'm telling you that it was such a success story because of the way he handled it, he made her feel very good about her knowledge. He never criticized her. He never joked about her. He was an absolute prince about the whole thing. And when she retired, they had a celebration after a council meeting. And when I'm telling you she sailed away, she was just glowing. She was so appreciative of all that. It doesn't have to be uncomfortable. Now, you may not be able to double encumber positions. He was not double encumbered. He was in a lower level position, and he was okay with that. He knew that if he respected her, eventually she would feel comfortable, because she kept telling us things like, I'm tired of doing this, but I don't have anybody to turn it over to. She thought she had a successor internally. Turns out that was not true. This woman left, she went to a neighboring parish, and there you sit. So I'm just telling you, baby boomers have tremendous value, and some of them really are getting ready to go. It doesn't seem that way, but if you respect them and work with them, I promise you that you can get the best out of everything. Now, how many people in here are Generation X? Anybody know? Usually that's one of the largest groups in the room. Generation X came along, and I really thought you guys were going to change everything. I love change. I was so excited. I'm like, they're going to come in, they're going to get everybody straight. This was the first technology generation, right? What did you all play? Atari? Brings back memories, right? I was sure you were going to come in and all of a sudden all of our processes would be streamlined. We would all be local governments that were just customer friendly, citizen friendly. It would just happen overnight. Nobody wanted to listen to you. There weren't enough of you to actually make the change. There weren't enough of you in one space to make the change. And so all of a sudden you come in with all these skills. The baby boomers are hunkered down. They're still traditionalists in the room and in government, and there you go, and you sit. Because, as you'll see in a moment, there are fewer Gen X that were born in the population than some of the other cohorts. In fact, you're flanked by baby boomers and millennials, and there were a lot more of both of those. So, Gen X, you all were really the first latchkey kids. You were the first ones who were independent, were on your own. Mom worked, dad worked, some people were in a split family, and so you had rules. I remember what we did with our kids who were there. Okay, you can put something in the microwave, but you can't use the stove. That was after one of them decided to melt candles to make a new candle, which was a disaster, just a disaster. You can answer the phone, right? The old phone, right? You can answer the phone, but if they ask where your mother is, you need to say, she can't come to the phone right now, and you need to call me immediately, right? You can't open the door, or you can open the door and you can go play at so-and-so's house, but you can't do this. So we had young people who felt pretty independent at an early age, and then they came into organizations and we said, sit down, do your work, I don't want to hear your ideas, right? Because we know what we're doing. Why would we listen to you? And unfortunately, because those darn baby boomers won't leave, Generation X has not had the chance to really move up in organizations like they should have. So we have people who have sort of been mid-management their whole career, and look, they're out of there, because these are the first smart people on this list to use the term work-life balance. What does that, baby boomers say? Does that mean you go home before 9 o'clock at night? Does that mean you don't bring all your work with you so you might be able to sit in bed and watch your shows and work on your laptop? Because we're sick, we're crazy. We define ourselves by our work, which is why we can't retire, because that's who we are. That's what we do, that's what we love. Generation X is a lot smarter than that. Y'all are very pragmatic. You know what to do. You don't need people looking over your shoulders. But here we go. You should be seniors in the organization doing great stuff. And some people have figured that out, but some people have not. So I think you're going to actually start seeing Gen X retiring. I think some of them will come back. I think they'll come back in a lesser role, a part-time role, a consulting role. But I think you're going to start seeing some of them leave before some of the baby boomers, which is hard to believe. And then we have our millennials. That used to be the ones we were like, oh my gosh, millennials. I still have a client who calls everybody a millennial. It's great. Those millennials. I'm like, no, they're not. They're a parent of millennials. They're not millennials. They came in at an interesting time, and they were really, truly tech savvy. And because there are a lot of them, they did begin to sort of put pressure on organizations to change the way we work, to change the processes, to change the fact that, we have all this paper. Some people are just scanning. They have whole rooms of things that need to be scanned. I was interviewing CIO candidates with a local government recently, and we were interviewing a gentleman from Cook County in Chicago, and it was great. He said, so you're pretty much migrated to the cloud by now, huh? And I looked at the CIO who's retiring, and he kind of shot me a look, and he thought, I'm not sure I want to answer that question. This guy may not want to take the job. I mean, he did that years ago. We're struggling with that in that particular organization. So, millennials can see a better way. They're all about purpose. They're all about purpose. And a lot of people thought government is not going to be their calling. But the reality is, it is their calling for a lot of them, because this is the way they give back. This is a way to provide service. This is a way to make my community better. And a lot of them really like that. And then along comes Generation Z. And they are real digital people. I mean, they were born with a cell phone in their hand. I have a 6-year-old granddaughter, and she FaceTimes me. And I will say, what device are you on? Oh, I'm on my iPad this time, Mayor. Okay, I know how to do that. No, I don't. I have no idea how to get my iPad to FaceTime me. No, I'm on Mama's phone. I said, does Mama know you're on her phone? No, I just wanted to call you to see if I could come over tomorrow. I think you need to give Mama back her phone and then let me talk to her. Oh, do I really? Yeah, you really do. I mean, she doesn't understand a world without those kinds of things. So Gen Z comes into our generation, into our organization, and there are a lot of them. And with the retirements that we're starting to see, even in local government with people that hunker down, they are the new employees, and they are different. They are different. And we have so many examples in our little consulting firm office of, you can't make this stuff up. We just finished the search for LSU. We had 30 candidates. We only wanted to present 10 highly qualified candidates to the search committee, and we wanted tabs in the binder because one candidate's CV, resume, was 107 pages long. I'm sure the committee read it, word for word. I'm sure they did. He didn't even make the top 6. But anyway, he just had a long resume. So one of my very savvy Gen Z people calls me, and I'm in the middle of a meeting. I step out because she knows, don't call me unless it's really important, and she says, I'm sorry to disturb you, she said, but, and I can hear she's laughing on the phone. She said, I have a question for you. I said, okay, what? She said, I know we're doing alphabetical order. Is it by first name or last name? What? Really? Yes, really. Because you can go on our SharePoint site, right? And you can see when we transitioned to this new generation, because everything is alphabetized by first name. They know the alphabet. If your name is Aaron, you're first. Might be Aaron Zuschlag, but you're first. You're first. I'm on the site. I'm like, where is his stuff? Yep, there you go. That is just one example. I have so many. It's unbelievable. They are using 3 different devices and messaging platforms at any point in time. I'm texting one of them, and she's like, wait, I'm on Teams with Tyra. Let me see what she thinks, and then okay, I can't keep up. It's a lot. But guess what? They love it. These are some of the best workers we've ever had. You just got to get over the fact that nobody taught them work. Nobody taught them work. And we think they know it, but they don't. They didn't have summer jobs. People don't hire teenagers anymore. I mean, that's a rare thing. So they don't know how to act. They don't know what a good work ethic is. Some of them started during COVID and they were sent home and they think that's a great thing. Remote work? Well, that's, of course. If you don't have challenges in your organization with remote work, I really do want to talk to you at the break because I don't know how you avoided that. It is a real challenge, especially for public service organizations. More than any of my client groups, it's a real challenge. You know, can we require people to be here? Can we have different remote work policies for different parts of our local government organization? How do we explain that? And if you didn't start back after the pandemic with a good way of doing that, you might be kind of stuck now with some this and some that, and I didn't make them all come back, and now I can't really explain it. It's no different in private industry. I will tell you that. I work with a plant that's not too far from here, and they allowed their finance department, of all things, to have a remote work policy. Now, the guys who are the operators in the plant don't usually know what's going on, but they have a lot of meetings, a lot of joint meetings, and they heard the finance people bragging about how nice it is to work at home, certain number of days a week, etc. So I was facilitating a meeting there. It was a cross-functional meeting, and all of a sudden these guys got very upset about it. Now, you can't be an operator from home. I'm just going to tell you that, okay? In the old days, people didn't know what an operator was. A Dow, that was somebody that answered the phone. And we had to educate people, know they have on jumpsuits and they're trained to look at gauges and things like that. That's all I know about being an operator. But anyway, it's very different. You have to be there. There was enough turbulence in this meeting that we had to have a follow-up meeting, and the plant manager was so afraid he was going to lose these talented operators. He said, Christel, you look for a compromise. You look for something that will work. They can't work remotely. They just can't. So you know what they got? They got a stipend based on how far they live from the plant. I said, what are you going to do if they move? He said, I don't know. This is too much. I can't handle it. We got to do something. This is better than nothing. I mean, one guy actually computed, he had the biggest truck man has ever created. He must have gotten 3 miles per gallon on this truck. And he actually computed that it was costing him over $200 more a month to have to drive to work than the people in accounting. And the guy bought it, the plant manager bought it. I was like, this guy has a whole new career. I mean, he can just go from company to company, representing the workers. He's like a union steward. Our Generation Z people are really challenging us in a lot of ways. They are interested in purpose, but they are really interested in what values is their organization espousing. Can I understand what's going on here? Can I live with these values? I hear it all the time in talking with people as they're thinking about leaving an organization. Why would you want to leave? Don't you like your work? I do, but I don't like the way they do it here. I don't like what they say about people. I find them very closed-minded. And you're going to leave the organization because of that? In my world, that was never an option, but it is today. It is. We used to teach people how to read resumes. What a joke. What a joke. So we used to say, if you see a gap in employment, red flag, watch that, gap in employment. They all have gaps in employment. If you don't, what's wrong with you, Interviewing somebody the other day. Well, what were you doing during this time period? My boyfriend got a fellowship in Spain, so I quit my job and I went over there. And I got somebody on the interview team with me who goes, that's wonderful. Do you speak Spanish? I'm like, no, she'll do it to us. I mean, we hired her. She hasn't gone to Spain yet, so I guess we're doing something right, I mean, it's like a new world. You can't make this stuff up, right? So you're going to end up with people who really do have some different sorts of frameworks in their mind. Try and think about what was happening when you were 9 years old. Now, some of us have a lot more time to go back to think about that. What was going on when you were 9? Well, I'll tell you, some traditionalists, they were coming out of the Depression. They were coming out of a very tough time, but they were going into a very lucrative time, a very wonderful sort of America is great, God is good, we were right, other people were doing bad things, and time of great patriotism and that sort of thing. Baby boomers, when they were 9, they watched people get assassinated on television. They lost faith in government. You got a lot of pretty cynical baby boomers out there because guess what? People lied to us when we were young and we watched things happen that it was kind of like, this isn't right. I know this isn't right. Even when you're young, you know it's not right. Most importantly with baby boomers, you wanted to know why. Why? That is a sin. Why? Who says it's a sin? I mean, is it really a sin? Like, I know they said that in church, but I'm not sure I believe that. Oh, horrified parents. They were horrified. Well, those people are still skeptical today. They're just running your organization. They're baby boomers. They're in there, they're hunkered down, and they're still suspicious of people in a lot of ways. And then you get the Gen X, where, you watched shuttles explode and you watched the Berlin Wall fall. But generally speaking, you kind of live through it a pretty good time, and then you get out in the world and it's not as friendly and it's not as inexpensive as your parents had it. And it's very, very hard for Gen X to try and catch up to where they ought to be. And some say they never will. That mortgage prices today will take 2 incomes to have the same type of house the parents lived in. People aren't able to take vacations in the same way without the same resources. We don't like to think about that because that challenges sort of the American dream of my children do better than me and they do better than the next generation and so on. But the reality is today, the millennials and Generation X started out with hard times when they got out of school. And so when you think about the differences between a Gen Z, what was going on when they were 9 years old versus even millennials, you can start to see why the organizations are shaping up the way they are and why there is tension there. So let's talk about sort of what we can learn from these new guys, right? They came in with totally different experiences. I'm working with a local government right now that is coming off of a mayor who was very involved in internal administration. Not all mayors are. This one, very involved. They have gone backwards in terms of paper and processes because he was a traditionalist. And he didn't want to look in the Munis system. He did not want to look at something on a screen. He wanted to hold it in his hand. All contracts are printed out of an expensive software system, put in folders, hand-walked, hand-signed, extra signatures, go over here. Now you go back to where it was before. Finance said yes, now it goes back to purchasing, now it goes here. I said, what happens at the end of this? Oh, we scan it back in because it has to go back in the system, right? Oh, wow. And I brought in department heads who have been there for decades and watched many mayors, and I said, is this the way you've always done it? No. That administration wanted it that way. We did it that way. I said, would you like to change it? Oh, please, can you help us change it? This is horrible. Things get lost in people's office. Well, where is that? Well, you don't know. You're not tracking it like you're supposed to. So who knows? People physically have to get up and go in different people's offices to try and find the contract. That happens so much, they started color coding the folders. I'm like, y'all, this is making it worse. Like everything you're doing is like one more extra thing to teach somebody. But guess what? That's what happens in organizations. So what can we learn from these guys? We can learn a lot, not just technology. They have a zest for learning, and they have a zest for feedback. And let me tell you something that they're doing in government right now that I find fascinating. They want to know, how am I doing? That's number one. How am I doing? If you have not left a meeting with a young new worker and had that worker turn to you and say, how did I do? And I'm like, in that meeting? Like, are we gonna have like this discussion right now? Oh yeah. If you haven't had that happen, brace yourself. They want immediate feedback. They want to know how they're doing. And they want to know if what they're doing is going to get them where they're trying to go. And we are not good at answering those questions. We're not good. Nobody answered them for us. But you got to figure out, if somebody wants to move up in your department, what are the things they need to learn? About how long is it going to take? Is it better for me to transfer out of this department and then try and come back? They think about these things. Their questions are very, very challenging. And every time you get one, you need to say, this is a good person. This is a good employee. Challenging me, I don't like it. It makes me uncomfortable. I'm going to have to think about things and have answers that I didn't realize I needed to have. We've never talked about this or thought about this before, but guess what? If you want to keep those kind of people, you got to start having answers. Even if you say, all right, let's just kind of look at the organization, right? So there's only so many TOs, there's only so many full-time employees, there are people already in these jobs, so that's going to govern a lot of things. But generally speaking, you can only move into that role if you have learned this, that, if you're able to do this, if you're at work on time every day, if you're completing your assignments. They don't know work, remember? They don't know these things. They didn't have enough experiences, and we take that for granted. So you really do need to teach them social skills, how to talk on the phone. I have clients who have people who won't get on the phone. I'm like, how do you do your job and never get on the phone? Well, they don't like talking on the phone. They want to text people, they want to email. I'm like, well, that's not an option. Well, they don't want to do. Okay, let's teach them how to do it. Tell them it's part of their job, not let them dictate, oh, well, you know, I better give this to so-and-so because this person's not good at that. That's not good enough. And look, they may not be comfortable with it for a while. They were used to sort of living away from social circles. They didn't get the school of hard knocks of some of them being in high school. I was in a conversation with someone yesterday whose child was in high school and spent 2 years in a school in California at home. She said, my son is just like he missed part of what ought to be in his brain about how to talk to people. Because that's an important part of your life. Hate to think about it, right? Nobody wants to go back to high school unless you really had a good high school. Maybe you were a cheerleader or a football star or whatever. I don't want to go back to high school. But anyway, you don't realize what you learn in those kinds of situations that helps you later in life. So I literally bring young people with me. I let them see how we walk in, how we introduce ourselves, how we have small talk. They don't know how to do small talk. Okay? You don't realize how naturally you do small talk. It just comes out of your mouth. How are you doing, you know? Oh, do you have kids? Oh, yeah, well, my son went there. Oh, yeah, you know, oh, I live there. My mother lived where. That's small talk. A lot of them don't know how to do it. Well, it's real hard to build relationships if you don't talk to people, if you don't feel comfortable talking to people. Think about how much you get done because you're working every day with people that you have built relationships with or have had funny experiences with, or I know somebody in that department that I can call, or I know somebody in the sheriff's office, they can answer this question for us. I mean, that's what moves work. That's what gets it going. But some of these young people, nobody's ever told them that. No, they've not experienced that. They're not watching other people doing that. But I got to tell you what, a lot of them are real smart. I have somebody who, she just beats the band. She's a GPT, aficionado. And she knows better than to use it for anything where she's got to go back and fact check. But She does searches for us. She's a recruiter, among other things. She listened to what the references said about a particular client that was a top candidate for one of our clients. And she was so intrigued by what they said that she went back and took phrases directly from her notes that references said. So a lot of you are top performers. That's why you're here. You want more professional development. Top people do. Imagine if somebody was talking about you and they were saying these things like, I don't know how she gets so much work done. I don't know how she's able to go into another department and come out, and there's been conflict, she comes out with a solution. She's got everybody working on it. I don't know how she does it. You never feel like you know that she's demanding something. She just has a way about it. Phrases. She put them in ChatGPT and said, here is my Hogan profile, her personality profile. How can I be more like that person? And it gave her strategies. And she started using them. And she started recruiting better candidates. And I said, Camille, what is going on here? I said, how are you getting these great candidates? And she said, because I ChatGPT'd what this other girl was doing, who's in a totally different field, totally different job. And I just started doing those things. I said, can you send it to me? She did, but I need a tutorial. She's got to sit with me and go over that a little bit more. So I already talked about technology adoption. I do think that, with budget constraints, it's hard to do that, but I will also say that a lot of the local governments we work with right now are realizing at some point they're going to bite the bullet, they're going to make a technology advancement because they can't find people. Our unfunded liability, our benefit costs are so high, it's getting harder and harder to find people who want to come for our salaries, which are sort of stifled. And so at some point, maybe we can streamline things and have technology do what we used to hire people to do. I think that you have to come to grips with maybe your desire or your colleague's desire to have FaceTime with people. My husband was like this. He wanted to see people in the office. I'm like, you need to get over that, okay? You need to get over that, because some of our best people do better work not in the office. For a while, we had 3 or 4 of them who liked to go to Starbucks down the street. I would say, is so-and-so at SSA West? That's what I started calling it, SSA West. Like, they don't want to have coffee in the office, it's free, right? No, it's much more fun to get your laptops and go to Starbucks. I went to Starbucks. They were not happy to see me. It was not a happy moment. It was like, what are you doing here? Maybe we'll go back to the office. I said, that's great, that's fine. The way we communicate is probably what I see more than anything in terms of sources of conflict, things that aren't working out right. I'll be honest with you, I try and mirror whoever it is that I'm working with, whether it's clients, someone in our office. If they're emailing, I try and email them. If they're texting, I try and text them. If they're in Teams, I try and do that. Some people are phone people, some people are in-person people. There's room for all of that. We do an exercise in our training classes now where we give people 4 cards: in-person, text, email, phone. And we give them real scenarios, real short. We've had an announcement that the mayor and the council have made a new policy on such and such. You need everybody to know. What would you do? Some people say in-person meeting. Some people say telephone. Some people say email. Well, there's pros and cons to all of that. But if we ever want to really become a team, we ought to talk about that. And which one is more appropriate for which type of policy? Do we need documentation? Email might be good. Do we really want to see people's faces? Then we probably do want to have some sort of in-person or virtual communication, because I want to see, are people understanding this? But most of the time, we get comfortable with the way we like to do things. You can't manage people by email. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people in here are technocrats, engineers, accountants, people who love the tasks, the numbers, the accuracy, and then you get pushed into management, and now that is not the most important part of your job. And so it's hard to force yourself to get out and walk around and talk with people and see what's going on. But we got to know, okay, sometimes that's the preferred method because I get instant feedback. Again, the new workers want feedback. They want to know how they're doing. And I promise you, if you get good at giving them feedback, they will gravitate toward you and you can watch them grow. If it's not you, pair them. Intergenerational, pair them with somebody who has a lot of institutional knowledge, who will talk about why we do this way. It can help both sides, actually. And then we have the situation where paycheck and pension is important to some of our older workers, but purpose and impact is important to younger workers. Now, you gotta have a paycheck, right? And it's harder and harder to live on the same amount of money as it used to be. So you will have people who will look at coming into government, young people, but they can't make it. They literally can't make it. So you've got to figure out how can we, with our merit systems, our personnel boards, our rules, our civil service systems, how can we do things that either create more flexibility for people, make it easier, cheaper for them to come to work, things like remote work or possibilities, things like choosing different times or days to be in the office so that everybody has a little bit of flexibility. There's got to be something in there where it makes your job more attractive than someone else's. You don't have to be the top of the heap. You don't have to have all the bells and whistles. We never will. Never will. But what are some things that can really help this person feel more comfortable? I'm seeing more and more government agencies who will do service projects together. Oftentimes it bubbles from the bottom up. Those are the best kind. Those are the best kind. Somebody has an idea, there are 2 or 3 people that are involved in a food bank or whatever, and the next thing you know, they got people together. You want to participate, great. You don't want to participate, that's fine. In the old days, we were sort of like, well, we shouldn't get involved in that. You know, that's not really part of what we're responsible for. Well, guess what? Relationships and teams, that is our responsibility. And if that's important to a group of your workers, great. You got 3 or 4 different things, that's great too. I think that we really have to open our minds about what does it take to have top workers in our organizations, because we just don't have all the tools and all the things that other organizations have in order to do that. So I talked about using multiple channels to communicate and matching the individual. It's not generational, okay? This is individual. You're looking for how do I best communicate with this person in particular. You can see that with council members. You can see that with intergovernmental communications. Once you get to know somebody, you will know. Right before I got on stage, I had to take a call. It's a councilwoman. If I don't call her, she will hound me. Hound me, I'm telling you. And when I listen to her, I think, you could have texted me that. You're going to text me the number anyway. But, you know, that's just her. And she's important to me. And I want to keep our relationship. So I pick up the phone and I answer it. Other people, I'm like, hey, I'm getting ready to speak. Can you text me? And they text, it's not a problem. Know your audience. I talked about reverse mentorship. I do think that that really works. I've seen it work. You don't have to call it that. You don't have to name it. You don't have to play it out. I want you to learn this one, that from that one. Just put them on a project together. Just have people, intergenerational groups working together. I think the why is one of the most missing parts of what happens in our organizations today. People don't know why we're doing something. Young people come in, they want to be compliant, they're trying, but they really don't know why we're doing this. Why are we doing this, right? When you begin to talk about the why, all of a sudden, they can think of better ways to do it. They can think of how they can improve their performance, because now I understand why this is so important. I'm not just pushing paper, I'm not just stamping something or getting somebody's approval on something. This is really an important thing for our community, for our local government, because. And you would be surprised how many times a very smart person can't really answer that question. So I think it's good to have meetings. I think it's great to have small group meetings. And I think it's great to have those kind of conversations. Now, your older workers might think, this is elementary. Why are we having this conversation? Until they realize that part of the problems we're having with everybody on the team is they don't know the answer to that. So we can skip that step, right? I don't have to do all that. That's just silly work. No, it's really important, and here is why, right? Have your older workers talk about that. They don't like the same recognition. Believe me, traditional boomers appreciate formal recognition, whereas Gen X and millennials seem to prefer autonomy, things that they can do on their own. It's not a group thing. You're going to give me, a few hours. Different league. They are. I'm trying to find the signal. They really want impact and authenticity. So a little ribbon or statue or something like that, some of them, they'll be polite, that's nice. But they really do want to feel like they're part of the organization and they're very valued. And I found in some cases, this is going to sound counterintuitive, giving them more work actually can be done in a way that says, I think now you're ready for this. You did such a good job on that. I think now you ought to be able to take this on, and I want you to work with so-and-so to figure that out. If you don't have massive cross-training in your organization, you're missing the boat. You're missing the boat. If you've never had that indispensable person leave you and had a void, like, how do we do this? I don't know. She left, she's on a cruise. I don't even think she'll answer the phone. Oh, great, nobody else knows how to do this, really? So watch that. It can get away from you really quickly, but that's also a way of blending your organization together. Try and work on team goals. I'm asked more about accountability in local government than anything else. How do I get this person to work? Well, tell them what you expect. Inspect what you expect, and then if it's not right, tell them you got to do it again, that it's not meeting spec. Go back to them, work with them, work with them, work with them, until you begin to get what you're looking for. A lot of people are like, I talked to him once. Well, you know what I found out? I am so diplomatic. I actually fired someone one time and she did not know she was fired. I think I'm cured, but back in the day, I was so nice about it, she thought that I was changing her role. She went out and told a coworker, I don't know what Christel wants me to do, but it's something really different. They were like, yeah, it's really different. Came down the hall, I think you need to have another conversation. Now, the girl was a little dingy, I do have to say, but it was me. It was all on me. People who aren't making the connections and picking up the cues that you think you're giving them are going to have that kind of situation. Try and mix people deliberately. Project teams, things that you want people to work on that might help expand knowledge transfer from one generation to the other or one area to another can be very helpful. I put this in here because I'm all about culture. I love the second bullet, psychological safety. If you can make your office a safe place for people to speak up, to ask questions and not be criticized, to share ideas, and maybe we can't do that right now, but wow, let's put that on the list. If we ever get a chance to kind of come back and do that, that would be great. Don't just have your senior people fill the airwaves, watch your meetings, right? Look at people. You don't necessarily have to call them out. You don't have to embarrass anybody or make somebody think you have favorites, which is just the craziest thing in the world, but people trying to interpret your motives. Celebrate small wins. Knowledge transfer, people learning how to do things. Talk about it. You don't have to give a party. You don't have to have banners. just congratulate people for that. And then work on succession planning. I think that, you know, we're not talking about changing people. We're talking about taking people as they are. But what you have to do in order for you to be successful is to really be able to bridge the gap. I don't know if we have a minute for questions. I think we're kind of maybe a minute or two. Anybody have questions, comments? You just can't make this stuff up that we haven't heard yet? I collect those. They're wonderful. They're wonderful. How many people really do have 5 generations in your, wow. Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you, prepare yourself, because if you can bring back some people, I'm working with the City of Baton Rouge right now. We have lists of people we would like to attract back in some form or fashion because they're just that good. And we give them a little time, you know, get out there, get bored, clean your garage 3 times, and then give us a call. Thank you all. I enjoyed being with you. I'm looking forward to our next topic.